Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. And today we have the director of the upcoming movie, The Invitation, Jessica M. Thompson. Jessica, thank you so much for being our guest. How are you doing today?
Absolute pleasure. I'm doing fantastically. How are you?
I'm doing great. It is an honor to talk to you. The movie, guys, again, is called The Invitation. It is releasing nationwide in theaters on August 26th, just a few weeks away. That's what we are going to be breaking down today. Jessica here directed it and co wrote it. So, that's worthy noting right there. So, let's get right to it. Like I said, you directed this film and you co wrote it as well. What element of the whole vampire lore, which we as an audience have seen a lot of, did you want to make unique and special and bring to the invitation?
Yeah, I think, definitely vampires is something that have attracted audiences for forever, and me alike, but really what I found, what I was drawn to in this film was the fact that it was an origin story of a bride of Dracula. And I felt like I hadn't really seen that before. It felt like a fresh take, and it was like a contemporary version of that. I also really loved the way into the story that it was about this, lonely artist living in New York. And I moved to New York when I was 24 to become a filmmaker. And I remember being that person. And she takes the DNA test and finds out she has these relatives. And it was definitely something, a storyline that I could identify with.
Going back to the DNA test, I got to ask you, do you think when she does meet this family that's over in England and the family which is run by Walter, do you think it was a complete shock to the vampire family that they had this other family member, or was the whole thing staged?
I mean, spoiler alert, but they had been seeking, someone in that bloodline, because to them they need those four bloodlines in order to be able to survive, in order to be able to retain their powers. Like it says in the film, like they don't, immortality is not guaranteed, so
Hmm.
they needed someone of Evie's bloodline. Now they didn't know that they had anyone, so the fact that Evie did this blood test was a surprise to them, but a very welcome surprise, one that they needed. Otherwise their species would not continue.
Very nice. Now, some of the we can't avoid, but making the references. There are some character names in this movie that reference Bram Stoker's Dracula. Lucy, the Harker family as well. Was that just you and your co-writer just paying tribute and homage to one of the most famous and oldest vampire stories out there?
There's actually over 90 Easter eggs in the film that are from Bram Stoker's Dracula. So
I
yeah,
definitely
you picked up.
miss some.
Yeah, you picked up on the names for sure. So yeah, it's paying homage to the original, the OG of vampire stories, right? Which was something that I read in high school and I remember loving. But also to me, it's about this world that's so duplicitous and that has everyone in the town involved, and that's the horror behind it, is that it's not just this one man. He's got a whole community of people, vampires and people that are, in cahoots to
Hmm.
keep his power. And that was to me the metaphor of the whole film, is about smashing the patriarchy, right? And that's what I found, was drawn to, is that this lowly, young woman ends up rising up and taking down the most powerful man in the world. And I think that's a story we can all get behind.
Absolutely. You mentioned this earlier as well about the four families. And what makes this film unique is that we have vampires uh, living and working with mortals to keep the hierarchy of power. That is very unique, something I don't think I've ever seen before in a vampire story. What was your inspiration for that? How did you come up with that?
Yeah, to me, it's like, so it was this kind of reference to these kind of old school patriarchal colonial powers, right? And that it's never just the men. It's quite often the women that are involved in keeping up this old world power and supplying it. So to me, it was something that I felt. what is the benefit to these humans? The humans, this man has been able to curate wealth for thousands of years. And now, as a benefit to those humans, he's paying them off. He's literally, and this is what marriage used to be. Like, it's only been in the last 50 years that women had any choice in the matter. We couldn't even own a house. We couldn't even, get a credit card in our name.
Yeah.
So really, marriage was about financial, prosperity between two families. So these men are literally selling off their daughters to this evil man, this evil genius, this evil kind of character. And I just felt like that was something that, like you said, was unique, hadn't been told before, and something that I felt was still relevant to today. Yeah.
Could it be looked at as a way of sort of mortal people selling their souls to the devil in exchange for wealth and power?
Absolutely. I think you're onto something there.
Definitely.
I won't name any of them, but I think we know the ones.
Now, let's talk about Thomas Doherty and Natalie Emmanuel. I mean, the perfect casting of those two to play Walt and Evie. Thomas Doherty, who plays Walt, charming, charismatic, good-looking guy, everything you would want in this vampire. Did you have to go through a lot of people to find your perfect Walt?
Yeah, no, it wasn't an easy feat. Actually, I know Thomas is really popular in the YA world, but I didn't actually know who he was. And then when his audition came through, it literally stopped me in my tracks. I think I was like half paying attention, half doing something else, and I was like, who's this guy? Like, it's not just like obviously he has these striking looks, but it's the way he commands space. It's his presence. It's, what he does with the characters. There's so many layers to the character because he's playing, the romantic hero, but also we all know he's the supervillain, right?
Yeah.
And I really saw those layers and that depth, even in his early audition tape. And I think he's bound for big things, this guy.
Yeah.
I think he's an absolute talent. He's charming. Also, he's a delight to work with, and that really goes a long way with me. It goes a long way in the world. I have a no asshole policy, and and he's an absolute delight. And him and Natalie, they just really led this cast wonderfully.
Was Natalie cast first, and you were trying to find somebody that would really have good chemistry with Natalie?
Yeah, absolutely. Natalie was always on my number one for this role.
Brilliant actress.
She's someone brilliant actress and deserves a lead. And I cannot believe she had not had a lead in a film before this film. And I'm glad that I'm so honored to be the one to be able to cast her in this role. She's an incredible talent, and she gives her all, and she has so many layers and so much humanity in her, and such an empath. She's really, a delightful human, and she is wildly talented, and I'm glad that we show off the breadth of her range in this film. She brought it every single day, and I would love to work with her again. She's incredible.
I was so surprised that, she rose to prominence in Game of Thrones, and to not really see her since, it was a shock. And I 100% agree with you. She deserved this lead, and she was great. As the film progresses, we see the family do a gesture where they put their two fingers over their lips. That's not really explained in the film. Is it sort of left up for viewer interpretation, or does that have a secret meaning?
I mean, it has a meaning to me, but it's definitely like up to interpretation. To me, it's kind of like, a symbol of buying secrecy, buying silence. I really love, like in the Hunger Games, that symbol that Katniss gives for the revolution. But we can think of other symbols that dictate, that dictators have used in history to kind of like tell you who, and these secret handshakes of secret societies. To me, it's like their way of identifying who's on the inside, and who's in cahoots. So I wanted to come up with a symbol, and that's the one. And to me, it was kind of like zipping your lips. It's kind of like buying silence.
What happens here stays here.
Exactly. And so I like that I keep it a mystery. I don't think it needs to be explained, but I'm glad that you picked up on it. And I think it's just some kind of like little intriguing bit of information, you know?
Exactly. Now, let's talk about two other characters, Victoria and Lucy. You could not have two more opposite characters than those two. I want to talk about Lucy because Victoria is what you would expect, being sort of a bride of a vampire type of woman. Crass, doesn't really give a crap, mean spirited. Then you have Lucy, empathetic, sympathetic, kind. She's sort of the enigma out of those two. What was your driving force when you were, thinking up of the character for Lucy?
Well, I really, to me, that was the thing that I worked on the most between when I first read Blair's script and worked on the script with her, was that I felt like Evie needed to identify with one of the characters and needed to find humanity within them. And I think, Lucy was sold into this system when she was so young. And I feel like she's the eternal little sister, always
Yeah.
looking up to and trying to win her big sister over. But also, there's something about Evie and Evie's empathy. She speaks to the maids and she doesn't talk down to them, and she's so kind and generous. And I think there's something about Evie's character that pulls out the humanity in Lucy and makes her remember who she really is.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil what
No.
happens, but Lucy becomes a pivotal force in the film.
Oh yeah.
And that was important for me to set up all the way through. And I think, yeah, Victoria is more of the old guard. She's more of the old style version of this world. Yeah.
And it's even referenced that Victoria is much older than Lucy in the film. We don't know by exactly how much, I don't think, but she's much older. Speaking of Easter eggs, there is a scene when Evie's in her bedroom and she's wearing an Outlander T-shirt. Now that's another Easter egg that's not related to Bram Stoker's Dracula, but it's very fitting because from the moment Evie stepped into that mansion, she stepped back into time. And I just thought that Outlander T-shirt was very appropriate. Uh, Everything from
Yeah,
the
you picked up on all the layers. I love that.
from the beginning of the film, you're in modern times, but the moment she arrives at that mansion, it's like she walks back into the 18th, 17th century. What was the meaning behind that T-shirt and Outlander in particular that you wanted to? Was it just saying, hey, a reference to just stepping back in time?
Yeah, I mean, you've definitely picked up on one of the layers of it. Another layer was that she's someone who kind of wants a romance, right? I don't know about you, but I was someone who didn't know what Outlander was, and then during the pandemic, like binged it all. And so I just thought that's something that I think a lot of the world would identify with when they see that T-shirt. That she's someone who's kind of looking for love, as well. But you're right. When she steps into this castle, it's kind of like stepping back into time, right?
Yeah.
And me and the production designer Felicity Abbott really kind of focused on that in our visual aesthetic design. If you notice, every single light fixture in the house is modern,
Yeah.
but everything else, all the furniture is old. So we really felt like these people have been around for hundreds of years, and they'd be collecting antiques and collecting things throughout history. And so I didn't want it to look like a mishmash of design. I still wanted to look, homogenous and like in character and in style. But to me, I really wanted to play with that contrast of modern and gothic.
And
Yeah.
I got to give you credit here. It is very noticeable, the lighting, the atmosphere, the costumes. Oh my God, the costumes in this film were just absolutely fabulous. Like I said, when she stepped into that mansion, we really feel like we were transported back into the 18th century at least. Now,
Yeah. And
do
all
you,
those costumes are bespoke, they were all hand created and by our incredible costumer, Danielle Knox. And, they specifically had, different eras. So when Lucy was turned, she was turned in the 1920s. So if you notice, a lot of her costumes are from the
yeah,
1920s. Well, Victoria's are from an older time because she was turned before
yeah,
that. And that was all done very intentionally.
nice. Would you say that Evie's desire to get a family again, she lost her mother recently, clouded her judgment to where she does this DNA test, all of a sudden this unknown family pops up across the pond in England, and it sort of clouds her judgment, and wanting to have a family so bad, jumps in before looking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And don't forget she's grieving. She's just lost her mother a few months ago. So that definitely can cloud your judgment. But that being said, I'm someone who's always up for an adventure. And if someone was like, I'll pay your way to go on this incredible trip, I'm like, let's do it. You just don't. I'd like to think that you don't have to always go through the world not trusting everyone. People are stereotypically good, I think, overall. I'm not jaded yet, but but yeah. So I think she's like someone who's got a bit of naivety to her. But I don't. I was really adamant about. I didn't want to make. She's definitely not a dumb woman. She's incredibly smart.
Oh
She's
yeah.
just someone who has a big heart. And I'm a smart woman, and I've definitely gone on adventures that are not dissimilar to what she went on. And thank God I came back alive. So.
Evie is a very powerful character. We do see some vulnerability, as every human being has, but overall she's a very empowered woman. She stands up right from the moment she arrives at that mansion, and we're not going to give away any more.
And yeah, you see that, right?
Yeah,
She talks back to the butler.
to the
She's always
butler.
standing up for the maids. Yeah, she's got a powerful conviction in her, and I love that about her.
I want to thank you so much, Jessica. We're out of time. Guys, I cannot recommend this movie enough. It's called, again, The Invitation. It is coming out Friday, August 26th in theaters nationwide. Check it out. It's a vampire story with twists you have never seen before in a vampire story. Jessica here directed the film. She co-wrote the film. You won't be disappointed. Any final thoughts you want to share before we go, Jessica?
No, I'm so excited for you all to see, and I want you to tell me what you love about it. Please let me know.
Absolutely. Again, thank you to our guest, Jessica. Thank you to our audience who tuned in live and
Thanks,
those of
John.
you who'll be watching this later on. On behalf of Jessica M. Thompson and myself, stay safe and stay walking. Bye, everybody.